Welcome back to Catholic Lunch Break here on AM 1430. This is the weekly program where we catch up with all things Catholic in the greater Houston area. My name is Wyatt Goolsby. I'm the executive director of this radio station, KSHJ. The Office of Aging in the Archdiocese of Galveston-Houston has a new director, and we wanted the chance to talk with her and a little bit about her life experience. Joining us here on the program is Kris Kerlin. She is the new director of the Office of Aging. Kris, thanks so much for coming in here and being on the program. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here.
Sure. Now, if I'm thinking correctly, you just became the director in August, so I know you're still trying to figure everything out. And I want to ask you all about your life experience because you have a wealth of work experience, life experience, living overseas in places like Indonesia and Australia. So I want to get into all that. You also go to church at St. Faustina's, which is growing rapidly out there. But let's start first with just the Office of Aging. For people who don't know, the Archdiocese of Galveston-Houston has this office. Give me an overview. What kind of ministry and work do you guys do?
Sure. Well, we kind of joke that we're one of the best kept secrets of the Archdiocese. We've actually, last year, we celebrated 50 years.
Wow.
And so we've been around a long time. We were started by two religious sisters to really cater to the needs and the personal and pastoral needs of seniors. And at the Archdiocese of Galveston-Houston, we are defining that as 50 years plus, the second half of life. And so in our Archdiocese, we have about 1.7 million families that make up the Archdiocese, and about 500,000 of those people are people over 50. So our ministry is not only to those 500,000 people, but also to the wider community, any seniors over 50 years old. Our vision is that we have a world where all maturing adults are seen and heard, valued and loved. And so the way that we do that, our mission is to identify the needs and also the gifts of our seniors, and then to determine programs and services to meet those needs and also give opportunities for them to use their gifts.
Kris, I'm still trying to get over the fact that it's 500,000 in terms of that kind of population here in Houston who you guys work to cater towards, to reach out to. And it makes sense to me because we live in a day and time where people are living longer.
Absolutely.
They have more needs. And like I said, still have that desire to participate in the life of the church as well. So what kind of events, things do you guys do to try to engage with people who are over the age of 50, for example?
Well, actually, this year we're beginning, it's a Jubilee year, and so we are starting something new after 50 years, and that's called Saints University. Okay. Saints University, we're borrowing this from St. Faustina's Senior Group, stands for Seniors Always Interested in New Things. And it's a community for faith, fellowship, and fun. And so what that looks like is we are going to have classes and activities, days of prayer, game days, recognition days in 4 major communities, our northern community, our southwest community, our central community, and our Spanish community. For the first time in our 50 years, we are developing specific programs and services to serve our Spanish community. And so we're really excited about these new ventures, and we are building on the foundations that were begun, and we are leading into some new areas. We see this as a time when, seniors are still growing in their faith. Nobody graduates from God,
right?
Right? And so it's a time, community is so important. We want to provide opportunities for people to come together, to bring their friends, then to take things back to their parish senior groups. About 80 parishes in the Archdiocese have actual senior groups where they have lots of different programs. At the Archdiocesan level, we want to bring some of the groups together to maybe do like a trip each quarter for each of our communities, because some parishes don't have the resources to do that on their own, but when they combine with other parishes, then we can make that happen for them.
It seems like in this day and age, the Office of Aging is more important now than it ever has been, again, because Americans are living longer. Tell me about why some of this work, Saints University, service, other things like that, is so necessary, because I know as people get older, they start to get lonely. They might lose family or friends. And if they don't have that engagement, you kind of worry what might happen to them.
Well, we know that my background is I'm a licensed professional counselor. And so the psychology and the emotional and spiritual well-being of people has been my life work. And with our seniors particularly, what I have found is that there's very little for seniors related to their emotional and spiritual health. There's a number of things that are practical or that are related to other areas of life, which I'm not saying those aren't important, but the inner life, when you become more mature in your life, the interior of your life becomes more of a focus, and the exterior of your life, it becomes more secondary. And so we have the opportunity as the church to provide an opportunity for people to grow internally as well. And then, of course, as you mentioned, people are living longer. We are not just in existence for our maturing adults, but also for the people that care for them. We have a lot of different programs that we do and resources about caregiving. And we partner with other community nonprofits, to the Alzheimer's Association, Care Partners, The Amazing Place. Those are all areas that, or nonprofits that do a lot of work in the area of caregiving. And so we partner with them and we provide support for caregivers as well as for the people they're caring for.
Does that include spiritual advice? I would think for caregiving, it's a challenge just in and of itself, trying to care for somebody who's elderly. But then there's that spiritual element that sometimes people lose out on or don't have as many opportunities if they're elderly to go to church, for example.
Exactly. There's actually another organization in the Catholic Church, St. John the Caregiver, SJC, that has a wonderful catalog of information for Catholic caregivers, specifically related to the interior spiritual growth and just the spiritual journey of caregiving. Because it can be very challenging, but it can also be so full of love and so full of grace at that time.
What are some of the common questions that you hear from caregivers, or some of these programs that you hear from people who are trying to take care of the elderly or take care of somebody who's aging?
Well, actually, at the moment, the kinds of questions we usually get are related a lot to personal caregivers.
Okay.
People want to know some of the practical things. They want to know, how can I get more support in my home for my care, for my loved one, and also housing. We get a lot of requests for, how can I find the right kind of housing for my loved one? So obviously we don't deal directly with that, but we do have a lot of resources that we can provide for people to look into that.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense to be a common question, making sure that if they have a loved one, that person is living where they're comfortable and have access to everything that they would need, whether it's physical or spiritual. Kris, I do want to ask you a little more about that and about your background coming into this job as the director of the Office of Aging. You had mentioned that you have a background as a counselor.
Yes,
so you come with that.
I do.
You have a lot of education, but also you have life experience living overseas in Indonesia and Australia. How did you end up there, and how long did you live overseas there?
Okay. Well, it's all my father's fault. My father in his he worked for an oil company, and so his position took him to Jakarta, Indonesia.
Okay.
And so we went with him as family. And I think for me there, it's just so different from the United States because it's a developing country. And so there was certainly a sense of, not everybody lives the way I live. And it was a real introduction to diversity, diverse, living experiences, diverse language, culture. And it really has been sort of the anchor, I think, for me to really love multiculturalism and just differences in people, and to really love how unique that makes each person. So I think for me, that's where that happened. When I moved to Australia, I was there for about 10 years. That was a very different experience because I was an expatriate. I was living outside my own country in a country that didn't have an international community. In Indonesia, I went to an international school, 51 nationalities represented, so there was this experience of international life. In Australia, most everybody was Australian, and I was, American. And at first, I really got a lot of, I got teased a lot about my accent. We don't think we have an accent, but and so again, it gave me a lot of, it just helped me grow compassion for just different experiences. And it made me really curious about how people create their lives. I've always been very curious about that. So I think coming into this position, there is, what I love so much about seniors is that they have a lifetime of stories and experiences. Behind every face is a whole range of experiences and stories to tell. And I love finding out about people and about who they are and what they've experienced and what makes them light up in life. And so this is an opportunity to do that. I would be remiss if I didn't say I am influenced by a grandmother of mine who I was very super close to, who lived to be 96 years old. And she was an example of just care for other people and vitality in life all the way up to the end of her life. And so this is part of her legacy that I have the opportunity to be part of. And I was privileged to know all four of my grandparents and my great-grandmothers growing up. So I've always had a sense of family history. I studied marriage family therapy because I think the family unit is such a marvel. I love that, Jesus came as an infant, is part of the Holy Family, and we are all part of that. And our grandparents and our seniors are in our parishes, sitting there with grandkids, and they have such an opportunity to share their faith with their grandchildren and their children. I hear some people say, "Oh, I can't affect my kids, but I'm working on the grandkids,"
Right.
And so I think that multi-generational family is really dear to my heart.
We are so blessed to live in this community where we have so many people like that.
Yes.
Often we take for granted the people who are sitting in the pews who have a lifetime of experience and
Yes.
things that we can learn from. And so I imagine with your background as a counselor, it's so powerful to be able to listen to those stories and learn from other people's life experience. If you're just now joining us on the program, we're talking with Kris Kerlin. She's the new director of the Office of Aging. Kris took over that position here in August, and you're listening here on Catholic Lunch Break, AM 1430, talking about her program, the ministry. We're talking about the Saints University service, one of the new services here offered in 2025. Kris, I do want to ask you about your own church. You go to church at St. Faustina's, which is out there in Fulshire, and it's been a rapidly growing community.
It has
St.
been.
Faustina. Shout out to Father Dat, by the way, a friend of the program. And it's only been around, though, about 10 years, maybe a little bit over a decade, but you were there going to church there right from the very beginning.
Absolutely. So I'm a founding member at St. Faustina. I wrote on the foundation of the church before they even started building it. It's been, I thought it was just such a unique opportunity, too, to be part of a new Catholic church. You don't hear about that very often. And it's, we just love our community. We have so many things, ministries happening, and our leadership with Father Dat and Father Christopher is just so dynamic. I think we're up to about between 6,000 and 7,000 families now.
6,000 and 7,000 families. I just want to highlight that. That's how crazy it's been.
And it's so beautiful to look around because we have We have church mass in English and Spanish, but our congregation is like a United Nations of people. I mean, we have people of every culture and every age, and it's just a beautiful unity to come together and share mass and share our community together.
Like I said, you were there from the very beginning 10 years ago. Yeah. When you were going to church there at the very beginning, what, was it only a few people, couple dozen people when you were going to Mass originally?
Well, I think, originally we were meeting at a school gym.
Okay.
And we had to,
as the church itself was being built.
We had people that were setting that up every week. I mean, that was huge. And then we moved into like this warehouse. Mm-hmm. And then they built the, what we now use as the church, but it will eventually become like the community center. Mm-hmm. So, and then they built an educational building, and they built the parsonage for the priests. And so we still are raising money to build the actual church.
Right.
But it's been, from the ground up, really, of being in the school. And interestingly enough, when I was in Indonesia, when I lived there, that was my experience of church also. Okay. We started in a covered patio area at our school until they built a church there. So that's kind of been part of my faith journey with church, is that I've been part of just the growth from the foundation up.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you've been on board for 10 years now. What I love about St. Faustinus is, as the area around Katy and Fulshire has been growing, the church has been too. You had mentioned how it's sort of diverse, people from different backgrounds and countries and things like that. I love how, as that part of the greater Houston area grows, so does the Catholic Church.
Yes.
I can imagine it's truly a blessing to go to Mass there and to be a part of that parish. Before I let you go, Kris, tell me, if people want to learn more about the Office of Aging, is there a website? What can people do?
I think the best way is actually to call the office.
Okay.
Because I'm going to give a phone number.
Yes, go ahead, and you're going to repeat it twice.
Okay. 713-741-8712. Again, that's 713-741-8712.
Very good. Again, people can also check out the website for the Archdiocese of Galveston-Houston to learn about all the programs and ministries going on there as well. We're running out of time, but Kris Kerlin, Director of Office of Aging, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Wyatt.
And we thank you for joining us for Catholic Lunch Break. Until next week, stay Catholic, Houston.